we will see how good AI is, how good Cursor and Sonnet 3.7 is. I've played around with both. Well, I've used Cursor over the last months, and I've played around with Sonnet 3.7 for the last couple of days, but I haven't really built anything with it. And that is what I try to do today. I want to build a little app, a mobile app, actually, with React Native, with Cursor and Sonnet 3.7. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see how good it is. It won't be a super complex app, but not a super, well, depends on how you define simple, I guess. But it's not like a to-do web app without authentication and everything. It's a bit more complex than that, and we can make it more complex if the AI is really good, I guess. So what I want to build is, in the end, as I said, a mobile application where I want to be able to set one or more daily missions. So I want to set some daily missions, some daily tasks, which I want to complete, something like walk 5,000 steps or something like this. And I want to have one screen where I have my my main mission. So where my one of my daily missions highlighted, let's say highlighted mission. So I want to have that, and then below that I want to have a stack of missions. Here we go. So other missions which are also relevant for this day, because I want to be able to have more than one mission per day, more than one task. So I want to have a stack of missions down here. So that is like a stack of missions down here. And I want to be able to view them, to expand this stack here, essentially, to view the various missions I have for today. And of course, I want to be able to mark missions as completed. Mark missions as completed for the current day. I also want to be able to do that. So that is something I want to do. So I want to be able to mark them as completed, no matter if they're here at the top or if they're in the stack down there. And maybe I also want to be able to switch missions and move them from this stack to up here, so that I can change my highlighted mission, essentially. Need more volume. I actually haven't changed anything regarding earlier streams. So can everyone hear me, or am I not loud enough? I can definitely ramp up the volume. Just want to check if it's a general problem. And then I can change it. Volume is okay. Okay. Audio is okay. Okay. Is this an Excalidraw extension for drawing? No, this is standard Excalidraw. I'm not even logged in. It's really just standard Excalidraw. What happened to the podcast you guys did together? Yeah, didn't really work out for us that well. We kind of were not happy with the format. So I still have my own podcast where I release episodes from time to time, typically like the YouTube videos I make. If they make sense without a video, I also release them as a podcast episode. And that's that for regarding that. Okay, so that is one screen I want to have in this app. But that's not all, of course. I also want to have another screen where I can manage my missions. So where I can view all my missions. So I want to have like essentially like a list of missions there, like this. And I want to be able to mark them as active so that they do pop up every day. So I want to be able to mark missions as active. All those missions here, of course. And I also want to be able to edit or delete missions. So that's also something I want to be able to do from inside this screen here. I also need a button don't care where it is. Somewhere I need a button which allows me to start the creation of a new mission. Because that's, of course, another screen I need. I want to be able to create a new mission, a new daily mission. So that should be triggered. That should be triggered. If I click this button, I want to go to this. I want to be able to go to this new mission screen here. So that's another thing. And on that screen, I, of course, want to be able to enter the mission details, which should essentially be the title of the mission, and maybe a short description, something like that. I could also later add something like a schedule so that we can control that some missions only pop up on Mondays, others pop up every day. But that's the next step. For now, that's like the very basic, the very basics I want to have. And then, of course, I want to have like a button, create mission, which I can press to essentially add that mission so that it gets added to this list of missions, and if it's active, also to this daily mission home screen. So not too difficult, definitely not a super complex app, but got a couple of screens, got a couple of things, and I also, as a next step, want to add authentication, and I want to add a backend. So this here, of course, this is all the front end. It's a mobile React Native app. So that's one thing. And then later, I also want to add a backend. I don't really care about if it's like a Node Express backend or if it's anything else. And there I want to, well, implement authentication, of course. So I want to, I'll just put down some notes here. So I want to have like auth in there. Whoops, let me fix that. Like I want to have authentication here on that backend. And I want to store my missions in a SQLite database, let's say. And then, of course, ultimately could connect both the front end and the back end. Obviously, that's the plan. So that the mobile app doesn't store those missions, but instead it's on the back end. And yes, I will take a screenshot of this and give this to the AI. I will do that. So that is the plan. I will start with the front end. I considered asking the AI to build both, but that might be a bit too much. I'm not sure if it will work out, and I don't want to end up with like a messy project and where I then have to restart or anything like that. So I'll start with the front end. And for the back end, I don't know what I'll use. I'll let the AI figure that out. I'll just tell it that I need a backend with TypeScript. That's what I want to use here for this project. But if it then uses Node Express with TypeScript or some other framework, or if it decides to create that backend with Next.js, which wouldn't make too much sense, but if it decides to do that, we'll see. But I'll start with the front end. So I'll take like a screenshot of this front end here. And then I'll head over to my code editor, to Cursor here, of course. And in there, I got the latest version. At least yesterday, it was the latest version, 0.46.4. I got Sonnet 3.7 enabled here. I might use the thinking version for creating the project. In my experience, the non-thinking version actually often performed better, but maybe for creating the project and doing all that initial setup, the thinking version is better. We'll see. And yeah, I'll then ask it to do that, to create the project and so on, and I'll give it a screenshot. Did you mean nest or next? I meant next, not that I would use next. It would not make sense to use Next.js if you just want a REST API, which this backend essentially will be. I just meant that I'll let the AI make the choice. And if it chooses next, even though that makes no sense or not too much sense, we'll go with that. Nest.js, of course, would be another alternative it could use. But I'll let the AI decide later. I'm not using Claude Code. I got access today. I have not really worked with it yet. Here today, I want to use Composer and let that do its thing. How much does it cost? So Cursor costs me $20 a month, and I haven't ran out of credits yet, which I would have to add on or switch to usage-based pricing if I would run out of credits for their premium models. So it can cost more than $20 a month, but at the moment I'm still at $20. Okay, so let me write down, and also I'll paste in that image. So here's that image of the front end. And then, all right, I want to create a mobile app with React Native and Expo. I'll give it that hint. And just as a side note already, of course, the fact that I know that I want to use React Native and Expo, of course, is something I know because I am a developer. If you just want to create any mobile app with any technology because you don't care, you, of course, might also get like an app with Android, with Kotlin for Android, or with Swift, or maybe you get a project that contains both, or maybe you get a Flutter project. Here, I know that I want a React Native and Expo project, so I'll let Cursor know about that. So I want to create a mobile app with React Native and Expo that allows users to manage daily missions. The goal of the app is to track daily tasks, missions, that should be completed every day. Something like walking 5,000 steps. The app should have the structure / screens shown on the image. It should have a main screen that shows the currently active daily missions. Could be more than one. On that screen, users should be able to highlight missions from the stack at the bottom or mark missions as completed for the day. Missions that are completed should not show up on this screen anymore. The second screen should be a screen that can be used for viewing all missions, no matter if completed or not. Their missions should be can be marked as active, and only active missions are included on the starting screen. In addition, on this screen, users can edit or delete missions. Lastly, there should be a screen for adding new missions. Feel free to add more screens and any components you might need. Don't add a backend yet. Store all data on the device in the app. So these are my instructions. Nice mustache. Yeah, the mustache actually is it was an accident. Last weekend I wanted to like trim my beard, and because I was still sleepy, I took off like the trim thing on my shaver, and I started trimming as I thought, and then I saw that a lot of hair fell down into the sink, and yeah, turned out I actually accidentally shaved myself. So I decided to remove quite a lot more of my beard and go with a mustache now. So there's that. Okay, so that's my description. I enabled agent mode here in Cursor Chat, Cursor Composer, as it was previously called, or is maybe still called, because I want it to essentially take action on its own and like not just answer one question, or I really want it to be interactive and interact with itself, you could say. I'm using Claude 3.7 Sonnet Thinking, as I explained here, for the initial setup, and I attached this image. So let's see what we get here. Let's see what we get. So it starts thinking. It takes a look at my project directory, and it correctly sees that I'm in an empty directory. So it wants to create a new app here, which makes sense. With Create Expo app, which also makes sense, using a blank template. And yeah, I guess it will create a new subfolder. If I use a dot here, I think it should create it in this folder. We'll see. Run this command. Let's see if that works. Yeah. So it's using JavaScript. Actually, I wanted to use TypeScript, but I didn't tell it to do so. So I guess we'll go with JavaScript here. Yeah, I'm not sure, Pablo, what the problem with the audio is. Like, when I asked before, it sounds like everyone else was hearing me fine. So that's why I did not ramp up the audio. I'm sorry to hear that you can't hear me that well. But unless more people have a problem, I assume that it is fine. Is there a huge difference between the thinking one and the basic sonnet? So in my experience, the basic sonnet is, oh, I need some input. In my experience, the basic sonnet is a bit better actually for many tasks, but I have only played around with it for like 2 days. But I got equally good or sometimes better results with the non-thinking one, I believe. Okay, so here it wants to cd into daily mission. That makes no sense because that subfolder does not exist anymore. And it wants to npm install a bunch of stuff, basically a bunch of React navigation stuff, and then Expo SQLite, and so on. So installing React navigation is, of course, something you can do, but you could also, but I guess it doesn't have that information, you could also use Expo router. Because if you're using Expo, modern Expo, which we're doing here, it actually has a built-in router for file-based routing. So actually, I'd rather use that here instead of installing React navigation. So I guess I don't want that. Use Expo router instead of React navigation as a separate package. So let's see. Yeah, sound is fine. Okay, good to hear, good to hear. Okay, it still wants to cd into daily mission. Makes no sense. It will not do that. npm install Yeah, Expo router is not something you need to install. It's part of Expo. You don't need to install Expo router. It's already available in a new Expo project, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. I mean, to be fair, I could have set up a project for it to start with, instead of letting it do all the setup work, because that's not really what you need AI for. Okay, it again wants to install Expo router. But I don't think you need that, do you? I'll quickly check another project I have on another screen. So another Expo project where I do use Expo router. Is that an extra dependency? Oh, I guess it is. But is it already part of this project? It's not. Okay, so I'm wrong. Okay, so that makes sense. So let's install this stuff then. I have always created Expo projects with a different creation command, and their Expo router was already part of the setup. Any updates on the upcoming courses, Max? I'll have a course update coming up soon for my TypeScript course. Don't have the exact date yet. And I'm also working or planning some other course updates, maybe also some new courses, we'll see. But there are definitely some plans. Can't share too much yet because I don't want to basically promise anything I then can't hold or that might be postponed. Okay, so let's modify the app structure to use app router. Yeah, sure. So actually, just to make that very clear, this was my mistake. It needs to install Expo router because here in this starting project, the blank template, it actually was not part of that project. I have always used other starting projects where it was part, but here this was needed. So makes sense. So let's see. Yeah, using the new architecture, I guess that makes sense. I think that is enabled for all new Expo projects anyways. But maybe it wasn't for this one. We'll see. And then let's create our database utility for storing missions. So it is creating a new database.js file here, this one. And in there, let me see, I'm in the way of this, ain't I? So let me actually remove the sidebar. So in this database.js file, it is creating a function as an arrow function for some reason, but sure, init database, where it essentially creates a database transaction to create a table if it doesn't exist, a missions table, where every mission has an ID, title, description, and then some indication whether it's active or not. Completed today. Does that make sense? So you could also create an extra table where you store completions, I guess. But you can, I guess you can store the information whether a mission has been completed today or not in that database. The only problem I see with that is that if a user leaves the app and comes back the next day, you need to check somewhere in the app. You need to reset this, right? So you need to keep track of whether this was completed yesterday or today. So to me, it seems like a bit unnecessarily complicated to store this information here in this table. It would probably be easier to have an extra table where you store this for every day where this is completed. And that way you just have to check whether there is an entry for the current day and you know whether a mission has been completed today or not. You need 1.1.25 speed for live videos. Yeah, me too. I'm waiting for this to complete. But I guess also because you're not used to it. I also watch all videos sped up normally. And I guess here, to come back to this, it would be easiest if you would just store the completion date in this table. That way you don't need an extra table and you don't need to check whether today is today or was yesterday. But sure. Okay, so then we have other functions here to get all missions, to get all active missions by checking whether active is 1, get today's missions where completed today has not been marked yet, add a mission, update a mission, delete a mission, toggle a mission, so change the active status of a mission, complete mission for today, Okay, yeah, so I would have probably set this up differently, but sure. So I guess it did a lot of other things as well, but now it needs some input. So let's see, it wants to create a components directory, a context, and a utils directory. Sure, go ahead so that you can continue. Why it's not using TypeScript? Well, I forgot to tell it to use TypeScript, to be honest, and it chose to use JavaScript, which I guess makes sense. Though in the past, I've also often seen AIs use TypeScript, even though I have not asked it to. But yeah, here I didn't ask, so there's that. Okay, it failed to create that directory. User aborted request. Huh. Did I? So let's see. Well, it did create those directories. Components, context, utils. So let's see. Continue. So now it wants to install the vector icons package. Sure. So my plan here is to basically let it do its thing. And then once it's done, I want to take a look at what we got and take a look at the code and fine tune it, fix any potential problems we might have, and so on. Okay, so it figured out that it does not need to install the Expo vector icons package. It created a Babel config.js file. That kind of sounds redundant. I would have guessed that a new Expo project already has all the setup it needs, so I'm not sure about that, but okay. Install React Native Reanimated. Return new promise. I hate it when people write promise code like that. Yeah, true. There's absolutely no reason to do it like that. You could have just used async await here. Or actually, I'm not even sure why it's wrapping this in a promise to begin with. Because to me, this all looks like a synchronous action. It's been some time since I last worked with Expo, to be honest. I'm just yet getting back into it. But I don't see any promise being returned here by any of these methods. So I don't know why it's actually wrapping this in a promise. Doesn't look like that's needed. I mean, I can take a look like the Expo SQLite documentation. Run async. So that's not the code we have here. We're using transaction. I don't even find that DB transaction. But it is a thing. Well, we'll take a look at that later. So, what else? It wants to run Expo start. Sure. Go ahead, do that. Let's see if it works. Okay, so it started without an issue. Now I'll press... Actually, I'd rather... I'll let it do its thing here, but I'll then start it in my own terminal so that I can interact with those keys because I can't... Oh, I can. Okay, I can press I here. So let me bring up an iOS simulator and see whether that works. Well, it does not look like that works here, to be honest. With a very cryptic error. Are you doing something about that cursor, or should I cancel it and fix this myself? Max, could you estimate how much of a speed up Sonnet 3.7 and cursor is? So that's a really good question. You can go really fast with it. especially in certain situations, if you're like editing a lot of boilerplate code or do something, if you're refactoring, because in my experience, Cursor is often quite good at picking up what you're doing, and then it makes the right suggestions. And I'm not talking about Composer, I'm just talking about hitting the tab key. In my experience, it often jumps to the right place in the file and suggests the right edits. And if things work out well there, it really all works quite well. So that's really awesome in my experience. So it can speed you up quite a bit. What I've also noticed, though, is that for one, and I've mentioned this before in other videos and live streams, but for one, you can get too reliant on it, and then you start waiting for AI suggestions in situations where you know which code you want, and you actually might spend more time on declining suggestions and trying to force different suggestions instead of just writing the code you know you want to write. So that's one thing. And if you rely on it too much, there are certain tasks I would not be able to do myself if I've used too much AI for it, like SQL statements, non-trivial SQL statements. I might need to look up things I've known in the past just because I haven't used them a lot. So it can speed you up, but it can also slow you down. But yeah, it can definitely be a nice boost and productivity boost. Do you think the large language model-based benchmark tests of LLMs would be meaningful? You mean like an LLM testing other LLMs? You mean that? Could be interesting, I guess. It's a little bit like working with synthetic data, like the thing training itself on the output by another large language model. That's a bit weird, but seems to work well. So why not benchmark? Sure. Okay. So I got something on the screen here. I got a running app, and here it's saying generating, but it's not looking like it's doing something, probably because this process doesn't stop. So what I'll do is I'll click cancel and resume. Okay, now it wants to fix some dependency issues. I'm not sure which, but we'll see. Updating some stuff. npm install, sure. I'm already kind of regretting that I have not set up the project myself, that I'm letting Cursor with Sonnet do that, because this is this is really taking quite some time. On the other hand, even if I would have set up the project, all the dependencies it needs, that is something the AI needs to decide here. So yeah. Speaking about getting used to AI assistants like Copilot, our brain will always attempt to do less. That is true, of course. Which is why these tools are really helpful. You can get things done quicker. Typically, not all things in my experience, but there are definitely many things you can get done quicker. So what's wrong is... What's happening here? Why is it not continuing? Thank you so much for the subscription. Mr. Gosh, I need to change that I can see it a bit better. And we reached the sub goal. That is pretty amazing. Thank you so much. So let me just quickly check. Let me just quickly check something. So thank you so much for the subscription, Mr. Rocky Mountain 86. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. So yeah, Expo start. So we will not do that. So I will start it myself because we're getting nowhere here. So let's run npx expo start here to start that development server again in that project. Okay, so it is already running. Now I quit it on that other port and I'll open it on the iOS simulator again. And that gives me the starting screen. So that's of course not the app I wanted, but let's see what's wrong. And of course, like I got all these suggestions. So what I'll do is I'll just press accept all the code, and then we can take a look at it. So why am I not seeing something when the app starts? Let's see. Okay, because it looks like I don't really have any pages here. Oh, I got some I got some folders. I guess I can delete those. And then I got the page files below the folders. Okay. So let's see. Whoops, did not mean to do that. Let me change this like this. Okay. So I got the layout.js file. It wants to use some tabs here, which I guess makes sense since I told it to use multiple screens. But of course, I'm not seeing that. I got the index.js file where it tries to output something, but I'm also not seeing that either. So I'm not sure why I'm not seeing anything when the app starts. So I'll just ask it. When I try to view the app, it starts without problems, but it just says, open up app.js. Open up app.js to start working on the app on the starting screen. So let's see what it does with that information. And soon I also might want to switch from Sonnet thinking to the non-thinking version because, as I said before, in my experience, it tended to be, the non-thinking version tended to perform a bit better. So I'm not sure with all the things it's doing here. And like running this command won't help it that much because it then seems to get stuck. So I'll restart here. On the iOS simulator. Element type is invalid. So I think the big problem we have here is that it really wasn't prepared to use Expo router. And now we got a project setup that's not really optimized for that. So what I'll do here to not waste too much time on this, because that's not really the goal here, is I'll quickly create a new Expo app myself with the setup I know I want. And then I can also use TypeScript as a side effect. So I'll run this command here. Name it daily missions v2. And that will give me like a more complex project setup with TypeScript as far as I recall. Thank you so much for the subscription, Spanik. Much appreciated. And that should give me a better project setup on which it then maybe can build up on. They could be a good idea for newer devs to learn how to read and interpret code written by someone, or in this case, something else though. So yeah, they can help with learning, but you really have to use these tools for learning. If you just use them to, if you don't take a look at the code that gets generated, if you don't ask maybe about things that are unclear, if you don't really dive into what was created for you, then it's also not that helpful, in my experience. So, back in a new project, a project that uses Expo router right from the start. And, okay, I could update cursor, but I won't do it here. And now we'll use that. So of course, again, I'll quickly use this screenshot here. And then I'll paste it in here and say, I want to create a React Native mobile app with Expo as set up in this project that allows users to manage daily missions. It should have at least 3 screens. I'll keep this a bit shorter now since I wrote it all before. The AI has to use what I give it, so it will be a bit less here. I should have at least 3 screens. Home screen that shows currently active, uncompleted daily missions. 1 highlighted mission, and below that a stack of missions where missions can be highlighted to swap place with the currently highlighted one. Missions can also be completed for the day from that screen. Screen for managing daily missions, editing and deleting should be possible. Marking missions as active should be possible. Only active missions are included in the main screen. Screen for adding a new mission. Okay, so and that will be all I give it here. And then we have the image and we'll see what we get. Yeah, TypeScript is included here. So that should, it should now really use TypeScript. And it now has something to work with. It has a starting project. Of course, it won't need all the files, all the routes that are in that project. But of course, it can change that, use that. I don't care, but at least now we have a working setup. Because before, I think, to me, I did not deeply analyze it, but it looked a bit like we had that typical problem where the data the AI was trained on was a bit older, or it had, like, of course, all that old knowledge, and therefore it tried to create a project as you would have created it in the past, and it then tried to incorporate new features without those features being available there, and I guess that's why everything broke. We probably could have fixed it, but I think that's the better approach now, because I don't want to spend my entire day setting up that project. I want to instead work on the code. So it wants to install React Native Async Storage. Sure, I'll just accept anything it throws at me here, and we'll see if that works. But the danger really is, and that's something I've noticed a lot when working with AI, especially if you let it build entire chunks of applications. The danger really is that often it wants to use approaches, packages, versions of packages that won't really work with the rest of your application, and you then have to do quite a lot of fixing to make things work, or you have to overrule it and make decisions regarding which packages should be used. Does not happen all the time, and it of course depends on what you're working with. If you're working with something that's a bit more stable, like Node and Express, for example, then older solutions will typically work quite well. If you're working with something like Expo and React Native, where things change relatively often, it's more of a problem in my experience. Might not be the case for everyone, but yeah, definitely something I've faced quite a bit. But here, hopefully, since we have a starting project, things will turn out to work a bit better. So let's see what it's doing. Creating a bunch of components, as it seems. There also are quite a lot of components in that starting project. So not all these components were created by it, but the green ones are. Let's see, we got a model here, the mission model. Let me shrink this a bit. So an interface and a create mission function. And here, as far as I can tell, it's not yet trying to store something in a database. Probably because it's using React Native Async Storage, right? Removed. Use one of the community packages instead. So Oh, no, but that's not what it's not using it from React Native. It installed this one here, I guess. So that should still work. I think it installed this package for storing data. So that should still work, I guess. Okay, so we'll see. Good, so it is done as it seems. Let's accept all and let's run npm start here, which runs Expo start under the hood. And let's again open it on the iOS simulator. And actually, let me dismiss this. Let's restart it, because that probably was still the old broken app. No active missions, but I also got an error here. Maximum update depth exceeded. But I see something that is app related, at least. I see no active missions. So that looks promising, but at the same time, I got... I guess I got an infinite loop going on here. Since it keeps on printing to the... Okay, so I got an infinite loop. Looks like this app has an infinite loop problem. I get an infinite repetition of the same error message in my terminal. Now, can I tell to what it's related to? I'll just grab it. Whoops. I'll just copy that and paste it in here. Hello, I'd like to copy that. Copy. Why can't I not? Are you joking? Why can I not paste? I'm spamming Command V. Okay, it's maximum update depth. It's a maximum update depth error related to the home screen. Let's see. And we can also take a look at what else it did here. So in the app folder where we got all the screens, we got the home screen here where it tries to output all those missions with animations, as it seems. Let's see what's it doing here. Yeah, it's still fixing this. So we got this home screen. Got the manage screen here, as it seems. And I can hopefully soon take a look at that in the app. Got the new screen. So these would be the 3 screens I mentioned. I also got like other screens, like the Explore screen, which I think is still part of the starting project, which I don't really need anymore. But I guess it does not delete files, so I can do that later. Got the mission store hook here, where it's using React Native async storage. So that's how it tries to store missions. So it's not using SQLite here, because I have not told it to. I'm just checking my drawing. Yeah, I only mentioned SQLite for the backend, which I did not include in my screenshot. So yeah, I have not told it to use SQLite. So makes sense. So it did actually not create too much because, again, all these white components already existed. It created a mission item component and then a bunch of screens. But let's see if things work now. If I restart npm start and I try opening this on iOS again and reload. Okay, the error is gone. Great. So now we got this starting screen, got the manage screen. And I can switch. I can't really reach that button down here because the tab bar is in the way and I can't scroll no matter how hard I try. And I got Explore. And I guess that is a relic from the starting setup. This is not related to this app. If I press this plus button and I can barely reach it, I go to this new mission screen. I can enter a mission title Let's see, testing, click create mission. Okay, go back to no active missions, and it's not added here either. So we got the basic UI. The app is not working though, and the UI is, well, it looks the way it probably would look if I had created it, which is not a good sign. And even I would have probably done better. So it's not looking that great, and it's not working, which is not a great combination. And by the way, I'm using AI. I like AI. I really do. I find it very helpful. It can do amazing things. But the one thing I don't understand is, I mean, you saw me create this, right? You watched me. I did not magically do something off screen here. And this is not looking great, and it's not working. This is first shot. We can refine it. We can probably fix it. We will do so. But what I don't get is, on X, I all the time see all the people who one-shot this amazing admin dashboard. Sure, I guess they only like have one page without any backend, without anything, but it always seems to work for them. But here you see it's not working for me. Maybe just bad luck. We'll see. So I'll switch to the non-thinking version of Claude Sonnet because again, that tended to do better for me. And I'll ask a follow-up question. The app works now, or the app's starting without errors now, but it's not working the way it should. I can barely reach the plus button on the manage screen because the tab bar is in the way. The tab bar also includes a tab for an explore page, which does not belong to this app. And most importantly, when I add a new mission, it's not showing up anywhere, neither on the manage screen nor on the home screen. I won't even mention that the app doesn't look good because I don't want to put too much information in here. I just want to fix like the most obvious problems here. People are talking about Gen AI capabilities of Amazon Q Bedrock. What's your thoughts on these? So Amazon Q is like this weird thing. Last time I checked, I didn't even fully understand what it is, and now I forgot again. So I partially understood it, but now I forgot again. Bedrock, on the other hand, is quite interesting. It's like this managed service that allows you to configure and run your own AI applications based on various open source and Amazon, not just open source, but in general, large language models supported by Amazon. So basically like where Amazon AWS has a contract with the provider, I guess. And you can like build really nice applications there, set up guardrails. I haven't really built anything with it, just played around with it a bit, but it looks useful because obviously you can build anything with AI, but it helps if you don't have to do the hosting yourself, if you can easily add things like evaluations or guardrails, and it looks like Bedrock is solving this problem. Hey Bex, you're looking like a Tamil hero right now with mustache. Yeah, with mustache, a new look. Gotta change it from time to time, though as I mentioned before, it was more of an accident, but yeah. Okay, once delete the file, sure, let's accept it. Yep, thank you, Apto. Sorry for that. Did accept it now. And let's see if it will fix the problems. I should probably also relatively soon start a new chat because it might have too much in its context window soon. So that might be a thing. But for the moment, I also want to give it all that context so that it still knows what it did. Now, what I like about Cursor and this agent mode is that you really don't need to point it at files anymore. You don't have to say, hey, the tabs are set up in that file. You don't have to include it with at and so on. You can still do that, but you don't really need to. It figures out where stuff is on its own, which is really useful. You do any C#? I used to do a lot of C# like 10 years ago, but nowadays not that much. That being said, I want to get more into game development later this year, so there I will probably pick up C# along with Unity or Godot. So yeah, but at the moment I don't. So it's still updating those screens. I just want to get it to the point where it's working, at least roughly, and then I want to explore the code and do some cleanup work and evaluate the code. Marcello, I'll have to translate that. To me, it sounds like you mean you like my courses, but whoops. No, I don't want the API. So that's probably Spanish. That's not Spanish. The tech language. And English, please. You are the man. I love your courses. Portuguese. Thank you so much. You should install cursor stats. Okay, it's done. What is cursor stats? You mean that I see how much credits it used and so on? Okay, so let's see. Let's reload this. So now I got just 2 tabs, which is better. The plus button is also reachable. And if I now add this, good. So it fixed all the problems here, which is really good. So we can see, I mean, we still have like a problem with that title being hidden here. It should probably use a safe area to make sure that this is visible. But we can see the highlighted mission, get the stack of missions. I can mark them as completed. Great. They're still showing up here though. But they are marked as completed, and I can view them here. Can I edit it? I can toggle whether it's active or inactive, and I can delete it. Okay, so that's working. Now, of course, the styling is still not great, but I have this working. Oh, okay, that is how. So if I have multiple missions, I can make a mission the highlighted one by pressing this button, and then they swap. But when I only had one mission, it automatically had that one mission up here and up here, which is also not right. And of course, the UI is really difficult, to put it like that. It's also not super obvious, I guess, that this is the button for completing it, but fair enough. You can figure it out. I want this to disappear here once it is completed, though. So definitely quite a lot of things I want to fix and change. But before I do that, I want to explore the code. Yeah, I want to do that. So let's see. Again, I have a bunch of components here, which already existed before. Whoops. I'm not sure if it's using any of these components, so I don't want to delete them. But let's start with the index page here. Let's start with that. Oh, and let me accept all here real quick. And then let's take a look. So index TSX is, of course, this page. Is this page here, the starting page. And in there, in that page, what is it doing? Of course, exporting my home screen component, then using the use mission context hook, which is a custom hook it created, which uses React's context API as it seems. So all this hook does is it uses all this hook does is it uses this fairly frequent pattern where you safely access React's context by checking whether it's maybe undefined, so whether it's being used in a place where it's not available. Gosh. And then it's returning the context. So that makes sense here. Good. And now I added this to the chat a bunch of times, which I don't want to. So it's using React's context API, and there it's using the mission store hook for actually storing my missions. And that is a custom hook again, where it is using React Native async storage for persistence storage. So actually, if I restart this app here, yeah, the missions are still there because thanks to React Native async storage, they are getting stored on the device. Height 100 dv8 should fix the issue with the island. Yep, maybe. I'll let the AI do it all for now, unless it reaches a point where it can't fix stuff. For now, I just want to understand what it did. So I got the use mission store hook created. In there, we're using React state to manage the missions and some loading state. Interesting. I guess because technically async storage is async and the missions are not available instantly. So it needs a loading state. That makes sense. So if I restart this, if I go back quickly, yeah, temporarily, so very briefly, you can see the no active missions thing, which actually doesn't make too much sense, I guess. If there is a loading state, there should be some loading text and not the no active missions text, but okay. So then we're using good old useEffect with the load missions function, and it likes to write functions like this, as it seems. So writing them as arrow functions, but okay. Using async storage to get an item by that storage key here. It gets my stored missions. They are stored in JSON format, so it parses it here and maps those parsed missions into a structure where every mission has a created at and updated at timestamp. But this makes no sense though. Oh, okay, no, it's just mapping it to convert a string to a date, I guess. Okay, I thought it would create a new date here every time it parses this, which would make no sense, but it's just creating new date objects based on the stored date. That's okay. Then it sets the missions, is done. Okay. Save missions to async storage whenever they change. So we got another use effect here where we re-execute the effect whenever missions or loading state changes. When the missions change, it stores them in JSON format to async storage. Then I get a function add mission where I update my missions. So where I call create mission, which is, I guess, a function from a different file, if I recall correctly, for actually creating a new mission object, which is of that mission type. And then it sets my missions. So I guess what you could do here, and what I would prefer doing, is instead of setting my missions here and then having this effect that should be triggered whenever the missions change, it would probably make more sense to store the missions in async storage here when I add a new mission. So that I don't need that extra effect which runs after the state was updated, I guess. To me, it makes a bit more sense to do that here. But okay. Update mission, delete mission, got the code for that. Toggle mission active, mission completed, highlighted. Okay, sure, we got all these things where the missions are manipulated. And then the saving them to async storage is always handled with that effect. The advantage of this approach, of course, is that you have this code only in one place and you don't need to duplicate it. On the other hand, you could outsource it into a function and call that, of course. And then we're deriving active missions, the highlighted missions, and the stack missions, which are all the missions that are not highlighted, and we're returning that data. Okay. So we got that mission TS file where the shape of a mission is defined. as an interface. ID, title, description is active, is completed, is highlighted. And we got the create mission function, which essentially acts as a constructor function, you could say. So this could have also been defined as a class with a constructor. I guess that's the approach if you want to avoid classes. But yeah, it's really just like a constructor function for this mission, or for creating a mission object that is of that shape defined by this interface. Okay. So that is the use mission context hook. It gives us the mission stored by in our async storage, and it also gives us access to some functions to change those missions. Use a ref to track if we already done the reset check. Has checked reset. What? I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what I can reset here. Where is this getting used? If has checked reset current return. Okay. But it's not using that anywhere else, is it? So it's only using it here and here just to set it to true if it's... Oh, no, to return. To return early if it's true. Okay. Reset completed missions when the screen is focused. Okay, so that is totally not what I want here. That is totally not what I want. I don't want... So if I focus this screen, it's actually not doing anything, but theoretically, when the screen is focused, it would reset. It tries to reset my missions, I guess, to make them not completed again. So that's not working here, strangely. But even if it were, that's absolutely not what I want. Missions should be... It's doing it so it won't double re-render in dev mode. You mean this here? But it says reset completed missions when the screen is focused. Even if we... Okay, so let's continue reading the code. So, oh, gotcha. This is just the dev mode part. This overall... Okay, gotcha. Okay, fine. So, actually down here, it's then checking what the last reset date was. So it's also using async storage for storing the last reset date. And then it's resetting if the current date is not the same as the last reset date. And that makes sense, I guess, because all missions should be reset every day. So it doesn't need to check this on a per mission basis. It makes sense to check it in general. So I can live with that. There probably also would have been other ways of achieving this, but this looks valid here, I guess. We should use cursor for self-education with your tutorials, or we should be away from AI when on our learning path. So I would absolutely use AI also when learning. I just would not blindly rely on it, but I would occasionally also turn it off and make sure that you're able to also do things without AI, because otherwise, if you only rely on AI, you're not really learning anything. And that may be a valid strategy too. If you're certain that AI can do everything soon, you might not want to learn to code at all. If you want to leverage AI with your extra knowledge as a developer, it makes more sense to also turn it off from time to time to make sure you can do things without it. That would be my 2 cents. Okay, so that looks valid to me, this logic here for resetting. And then we got our... no mission state. So if we don't have a highlighted mission and if the stack is empty, then it's showing this no active missions fallback. Otherwise, it is returning a view where I got the highlighted mission here. Ready to play some nice fade animation, which we saw before. And that stack. And it's not really a stack as I drew it. So if we take a look at my image from before again, it's also a bit hard to see maybe, but those missions should be overlapping. And that's of course not the case here, I guess. Though I also guess I haven't added enough missions. No, but it's just a list here. It's just a list. And then we got some styles here. Okay. And then in the manage screen, I would imagine we got a list of missions, a flat list, right? Yeah. So what I can't do here is I can't edit missions, even though I ask it to make them editable, but I can only mark them as inactive. By the way, if I do that, if I mark mission 3 as inactive, yeah, it's not part of that screen. That works. And I can delete them, but I cannot edit them. I cannot change the text as it seems. And of course, this button, this button here is a bit up. It could be a bit further down. But yeah, not too problematic. Okay, so generally that works. I might have done some things differently, but that being said, it's been some time since I last worked with Expo, so I would have to do some research first on how to do certain things, but in general, it seems to work. I would definitely like to change the look of all of that, because that is not looking that nice. So I will open a new chat here. New chat. The app seems to work as intended now, but the UI looks horrible. The title is obscured by the iPhone notch, dynamic island. And the general styling looks quite old. The stack of non-highlighted missions also isn't really a stack of overlapping items. Make it look more modern and cool. Let's see what we get. Connection failed. Okay. Max, at least you are a real person. I am. What is the future of Flutter? So Flutter is very popular. I mean, we had like all this controversy with Flock last year, and the Flutter team it sometimes seems like the Flutter team is all over the place and trying to add more and more platforms Flutter runs on and things like that, instead of maybe fixing some long-standing problems with Flutter. I will say that. But also, I will say that building mobile apps with Flutter is still a great experience, in my opinion. And it has a very vibrant user base. Lots of people and lots of companies using it, as far as I can tell. I'm doing your React course. It's difficult. How can I do it easily? Well, I'm not sure what exactly you mean. Of course, it is a complex, big course. React is complex. And the course, I tried to create a learning curve that is not super steep, but also definitely challenging so that you can make good progress fast. You might have to rewatch certain videos or sections if you're stuck or if some concepts are not clear. That is the advantage of a video on demand course, that you can do that. You should practice all the things with the demo projects I have in the course, but of course also with your own demo projects. And that hopefully will help there. You can also let me know what exactly is difficult, and maybe then I can give a more helpful answer. So I'm really interested to see which style we'll get here. How the security confidentiality of project codebase is maintained when using an AI assistant for our project? Yeah, great question. So here, when using Cursor, you can turn on privacy mode. And then Cursor will not save your prompts and will not save your code. But, of course, the AI model used by Cursor, to my knowledge, so, excuse me, Sonnet, for example, they do, of course, get your prompts and get your code that is part of those prompts that are generated by Cursor. And therefore, that is an issue. You might not want to use Cursor with a model like Sonnet. You might want to use a tool that allows you to use your own models hosted on your own servers, which of course is trickier, but you can of course use some open source models and try to use that. So let's see, let's reload. Yes. Okay. The title is no longer hidden by the dynamic island. Instead, now it's cut off. And I'm not sure if this has a modern, cool look. It's really a difficult look. So there are things that have the tendency of maybe being cool if the rest, or modern if the rest of the UI were modern. Like this badge here, it could look modern if the rest would look a bit better. This, I'm not too sure. And I pressed it by accident, but the plus button is gone. So I got this weird thing here. Not sure how I can get rid of it, like this multi-touch indicator. I'm not sure why it's still showing here, but that's not part of the app. But it looks like there is an invisible plus button somewhere. Like if I press here, occasionally this will open up, but okay, yeah. Oh, and I got an error. Okay, so unable to resolve. No, I guess this error was from before. So I think this error does not occur anymore. This looks awful. Not modern at all. And the plus button on the manage screen seems to be invisible. Also, the title is now not obscured anymore, but it's cut off at the top. And I'm fully aware that I could, of course, dive into the code and start fixing that stuff on my own. And typically I would, of course, do that. Or typically I would actually start building the app and then use AI to add individual blocks. So I would not use it as I'm doing it here, but I find this to be an interesting experiment. It's also quite possible that you're trying the exact same prompts and you get a better result. That's also how AI works. But I really want to see how well what we can get by just using AI here. I don't want to fix all this stuff on my own because, hey, I'm not cleaning up the mess AI makes here. That's not my goal. I rather spend all my credits and let AI do it. So I'll keep on asking AI until this looks better. But maybe we don't need developers anymore. We just need designers. Just joking, by the way. The problem also is it's been so long since I've last worked with Expo and React Native, and I am working a lot more with it now, but it's been so long. I don't know which new packages or features have been added or are baked into Expo now, which could be used to achieve certain things. So I don't even know all the latest best practices and commonly used packages. I'm still in the process of getting back into that at the moment. So I actually need to rely on AI here to do stuff for me because I don't know all the things better. I do know that what we had before looked garbage, though. It looks better now because it's dark, and dark always looks better. I can already say that. The tab bar looks awful, but it's not done yet, so maybe we'll get there. We'll see. We will see. I'm also still not totally convinced by the overall look, but again, it's also not done, so it might get better. Title is also still cut off. We can try that 100 DVH solution that was suggested before, but again, I really want to let AI do that. Also, it's done. Let's reload. Okay, tab bar looks bad. This button looks bad. It looks like a square jammed into a circle. It looks a bit better, mainly because it's darker. Contrast is not ideal, but better. Now, I still can't edit items, but I think I did not ask it to. Boy, that looks horrible. Okay, so a task. Let's see. Still not really a stack here. Still a list. Okay, so we're getting there. We're getting there. It looks a bit better, but many things are still broken, do look bad. The tab bar is not dark as the rest of the app. On the new screen, the input elements also seem to have a white background or something like that. The plus button looks weird, like a combination of a square and a circle. Overall contrast could be better. On the main screen, the non-highlighted items are not really a stack of overlapping items. Make them a stack of overlapping items. I don't want a regular list there. The title also still is a bit cut off at the top. Yeah, giving it a screenshot is something I could do. Let's see what it comes up with now, and if it still looks bad, I'll give it some images. Good point. That's a great question, Bookers. If AI learns of stuff like GitHub, what happens when everything on GitHub is created by AI? It's an interesting thought I also had a couple of months ago, that in a world where everything is generated by AI, the future training data is also AI generated. So we enter this circle of either very repetitive designs and applications, or a weird cycle of creativity or degrading code. Hard to tell. In the early days of ChatGPT, I actually don't know how it is today, but like 2 years ago, you could, for example, tell ChatGPT to repeat the character A 1,000 times. And after doing it often enough, it would continue with B, C, and then start generating gibberish. So not really anything that would make sense. Maybe the same thing happens if it trains itself on code that was generated by it. I guess we write a lot of issues at once. We should ask one by one, not all together. Sure, I can also try that. Though, to be very honest, some issues are, of course, not related to each other, like the stack thing. But the problem with the white tab bar, which is fixed now, and the white background on the input elements is like a more general issue that it's not applying its color scheme everywhere, so it should be able to handle that. But yeah, I agree. We could, of course, also break it down. How often do you revisit a particular framework or library in order to catch up, or do you so based on the projects you have to face at the moment? Yeah, the latter. Really depends on what I'm working on. It's not like I'm checking in on Vue and Angular and React once a week. It really depends on what I'm working on. And therefore, there also are libraries or frameworks I might not touch at all for a whole year or something like this. Any tips for better prompt engineering to get better AI results? In my opinion, prompt engineering has become less important now that we got better models, and especially with thinking models, you don't need to do tricks like chain of thought prompting anymore, and you actually shouldn't do it anymore because that can lead to worse results. In general, the trick still typically is to give it a good goal, include relevant context and only relevant context, avoid unnecessary information. If you need a specific output format, let it know about it. Consider adding some examples. Yeah, that is really like what I do. And especially like the example part, if you want like structured data as a response, giving it some examples for the format you want, that can help quite a bit, for example. So the header is still broken. At least looks like it, but I'll not worry about that right now. The rest looks better. The plus button, not sure about that placement. I would probably rather have it here or have it floating here. It looks better. I somehow have the feeling that okay, that is not fixed. I somehow have the feeling that we still don't here have okay, now we have a stack of overlapping items, but now we can't access them. So now if I add more items here, yeah, I only see test 3 here, and does not look like I can get access to the other items. Still, the styling is also not perfect. Like this blue-gray thing here, I'd rather have it all gray. But sure, we'll now try it step by step. So I will say, still doesn't look great, but we'll get there. Fix the position of the plus button on the manage screen. Add it to the title bar. That's what I want to have here. And by the way, I'm not testing this on Android, obviously. Technically, it's a stack, though. That's true. It is. I'm not testing this on Android. Definitely something I should also do, but as long as it's not working on iOS, I don't bother testing it somewhere else because I rather fix it on one platform before moving on to another. But I would assume that it does not look great on Android either. I mean, for the most part, it should look similar, but you never know if there is some platform-specific code in there or some special quirks. But yeah, first I want to get it to work here on iOS. And I'll also next share a screenshot of this issue here. I'll already take it. So that I can let it know that this does not look great. I got the plus button here in the title bar now. Again, I'm not sure if it needs to be a green circle. Maybe just a plus without any background would be better, but maybe it's also not done yet. Nope, looks like it is done here. Okay, I'll ignore that. Instead, I want to focus on this styling here. The styling on the new mission screen is broken. See the attached image. And I did attach the image here. It should be consistent with the dark look of the rest of the app. I also wonder, so this starting project had a colors TS file. It's not using that at all though, as it seems. So instead of managing the colors in a central place, I assume it's just adding them. Yeah, it's probably like setting up the colors in every component, in every file, which is not ideal because obviously for an AI, it's easier to change it in all the places, but as a human, you would have to go to all those places and edit it if you want to change the color. And even for an AI, it may of course start hallucinating or lose context, so having it in dozens of places is not ideal. But that's a different thing. Let me reload the app here. That is still broken. The new mission screen still looks broken. The inputs need a dark background. Currently, it's still white. The same is true for the title of that screen modal. If it can't get this to work, though, I'll ignore it and I'll work on the stack and on the missing features, like being able to edit those items, though. That's more important. But maybe it can also fix this. I need to go in half an hour, so let's see how far we can get here. Honestly, I did expect this all to I expected better results, I guess, is what I want to say. I honestly did not think that it would struggle that much with the styling, because when I've used Sonnet 3.7 in other apps, it typically generated quite decent styles. Okay, what do you want to do here? What? Why would you want, for one, this does not make sense to navigate into this folder. This is not a, you are already in that folder. And why would you want to install Expo router? It's already part of this. Is it not? It is already part of this project. So this makes no sense. No reason to install Expo router. It's already part of the project. So yeah, I expected this to actually go better, because when I've used it in other projects, the styles it generated were actually fine, I guess. The good thing is that most of the logic works. Okay, finally. I mean, I'll ignore the fact that this is still white. And then we got like 2 titles here, right? So I'll ignore that. It looks better than what we had before. Oh, but now I can't enter anything. It just overrides whatever I'm typing in both inputs. Okay. I'll start a new chat. I can't enter anything into the input fields of the new screen. Whenever I try to type there, it'll override my input and essentially reset the input fields to an empty state. These AI models remind me of a customer service agents. Sometimes they do amazing, and then sometimes you get the guy that's on his last day. Yeah, exactly. I also had better results than what we're seeing here, to be honest. And I know that there are people building apps with barely any knowledge about coding. But this is not faked. I mean, I'm trying my best with Cursor, with Claude, Sonnet 3.7. This is all real. It's not doing that well. I've not used Agent before, but I feel like having it make changes to multiple files unchecked, it's just asking for trouble. You're right. But so for one, it can't, for example, run commands without me accepting. So it can't like delete your hard drive. It can, of course, edit the code files, but you don't have to accept everything the way I do. That's just something I do here because I really just want to have the AI figure it all out for me. I don't want to look at the code. In reality, you would, of course, take a look at the changes it wants to make, and you can tweak those changes. You can go to that file and you can individually accept or reject changes. So you don't have to accept it all. Okay, let's restart again. Yeah. I still can't enter anything. It used to work before. Looks like you're managing the input state incorrectly, or you're not feeding the updated state back into the inputs. Please check plus fix it. Now that arguably probably wouldn't be something that's too difficult to fix. If I take a look at the inputs here, on change text, handle title change, and value is set to title. And it is updating the title. I'm not really sure. Maybe because of the use callback use, but in theory that didn't look too wrong. Okay, that is really weird. I don't have fingers, man. Can't reproduce the error, Sonnet. Yeah, true. So now here's the tricky part. Since I have not written any of that code, debugging that is not as straightforward as you might hope. But in theory, I can see the text input, enter the mission title. So that is this input here. The value is set to title, which is some state. And that state is updated with on change text. So on first sight, that doesn't look wrong. This looks all right. Updating the state, feeding it back into text input. I'm honestly not sure what's causing this to behave that weirdly. So just to be super safe, let's do good old console log debugging here. So that's what I entered. This text is definitely ending up here. And I am updating my state. And I'm feeding that back into text input. I'm joining now. Will this be published? Yeah, absolutely. I will publish the VOD of this session here on my Maximilian extended YouTube channel. So I'll upload it there tomorrow. So that's really weird, because if we take a look at the text input documentation on the React Native docs, we find essentially the same code there as we're using it, as the AI wrote it for us. Like, we got use state, and then on change text, the state gets updated, and we feed it back into text input. So that really looks good to me. So it looks like maybe it's updating that screen. So like is there some other state? Oh yeah, it's maybe it's if text trim. No, but this should not run all the time. So I thought if there may be some other state updating going on which discards my state, but that's not the problem here. Yeah, I did reset the app. Actually, I can also like try restarting the server. Should not make a difference here, but maybe it is really just broken. It's not like this would have never happened before with React Native. So maybe it is really just like in a broken state. No, still doesn't work. Set titles just updates my state here. So that is actually correct. So I honestly don't see anything that would justify this behavior. So typically the error we just saw, for example, occurs if you don't feed the value back into text input, but we're doing that here. So that should really work normally. Not sure why this is resetting all the time. It looks like there's something updating this screen. It's still happening. Maybe due to some other problem outside of the new file. We should not forget, I wanted to use AI for fixing this, so I'll continue with that. It should have used ref. Maybe there is some other event handler. Yeah, that's what I also figured, that there is some other event handling going on. Something it may be added. So we got a bunch of buttons, but those are not really wrapped around the text input. Oh, it now wants to find all text inputs, as it seems. Yeah, sure, I guess this is not a command that will delete my system, but I'm also not sure if it will help. There is an on-press handle create mission. Yeah, but this is also a button below the input field. So that's this green button here. That should not be responsible for this issue here. I'm really not sure if it will be successful with these commands it's running here, but sure, have fun. Remove the on changes on inputs and type in the input. Not sure what you mean. So I'm generally, this is following the code that you would also find in the official documentation as far as I can tell. So I would have assumed that it should work. It definitely did work before. Yeah, gosh, whatever you want to do, like investigate my entire directory. Title, set title, description, set description. I would have understood it if there were some use effect here that maybe might be doing weird stuff. But that does not. Well, I guess one thing we do have is like use mission context. But we're not updating the context on every keystroke, are we? So that should actually not be the problem, I guess. I've made a significant change to fix the input field issue. The key change was replacing all the custom themed components with standard React Native components. The issue was likely caused by the custom themed components re-rendering unnecessarily or interfering with the input state management. Possible. I just want this to get to work. Gosh. So, interestingly, if I type in that field and I hit enter anything, it deletes that and it moves the focus back to this title input field. Now, since I have autofocus on that, I assume that the problem really is that something is causing this screen to re-render, and therefore everything on every keystroke, and therefore everything, all the input is lost. Now, I don't really feel like debugging this right now because I did not break it, and that's the problem. Like, I did not write this code, so I really have to dig in deeply now into all the files to see what's wrong here. And I would do that, but it's not the only issue we have here, and I have some items to work with. So instead of fixing that, I'll rather focus on the stack here for now. Any of these trim checks breaking it? I don't think so, because I just trim the text that is submitted by React Native, basically, and I do that after updating my state here, so that text here is not trimmed, so that should not be the problem. Can you change the event handler to on and edit? You mean here on and editing? On and editing. Whoops. On and editing. But there I don't get the text, do I? I'm not sure about that. So yeah, I'll focus on that stack for now, and then I'll come back to that later if there's still time. But I gotta go in 10 minutes, so I'll at least try to get this to work here. Let's see. I'll open a new chat, I guess. On the home screen, there is this stack of missions. The missions that are currently not highlighted. It's a stack of overlapping items. See screenshot, and I'll soon add one. But I can't expand it. I want to be able to click the stack to expand it so that I can then mark individual items as highlighted. So I'll then just take a screenshot, add that here, and let's see what that gives us. It's really weird that this screen for adding new missions is broken that way. The problem is, of course, it worked before, and I probably, if I would have expected all the if I would have inspected all the changes it suggested, I would have maybe been able to catch this error early. But this way I was not. So now I need to go through all the files to find out what's broken. And that's, of course, a bit annoying. So I rather focus on something else for now and then maybe come back to that other problem later. I also like Cursor quite a bit. Normally, I don't use it the way I use it today. Normally, I use it as an assistant and not to do everything. And I can see why I'm normally not doing that, because this is not super productive what we're doing here. Hey, Maximilian, you're the one who taught me React. Love your courses. If it were very useful in my career. Thank you so much. Amazing to hear that. Means a lot to me. I'm super happy that you like my courses. I need to go next. Thank you for everything. You're a great developer and teacher. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much for being part of the stream. Thank you so much, all of you, for being part of the stream. I hope you're liking it, despite me not making a lot of progress here. But hey, it's not my fault. I'm using just an AI. We're maybe not there yet to do that, as you can see. As an assistant, it's great. Maybe in the next stream that would be interesting to really like build something that I build something and I use AI as an assistant. But for today, AI is in the driver's seat and it's not fully prepared for that yet, I guess. Or I'm just having bad luck here. It's also possible. Hakan, the implementation you suggest is actually the one I had before. So updating it like this, that didn't work either, unfortunately. Loving these live streams from you, Max. Keep doing them. I definitely will. I like them a lot too. Having a lot of fun in these live streams. And we get a bunch of problems here, right? So maybe also like the API is down or has some problems. I haven't been paying close attention here, but it really looks like we're in that phase again where it's just doing weird stuff, where it's entering this cycle of stupid of stupid actions, and it's not getting anywhere. But we'll see. Love your course, Max. German people are the real hustlers. Well, I'm not so sure. Maybe in the past. I'm not so sure if that's still true, but thank you so much. Much appreciated. As a developer, I find it very frustrating to control the AI from going berserk. Yeah, absolutely. Like here, we're in. It's just doing. I don't even know what it's. I'm not sure why it's using cat to inspect content of a file. It could just like the file's there. It could just open it in my IDE, I guess. But sure. Maybe when the planets align, AI will do a better work. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Is that free to access? What do you mean? The AI cursor? It's free, but very limited if you don't pay for it. I'm on the $20 plan, which gives you more access to premium models and so on. I wanted to know if you also used AI in the content creation of your React books. If you mean for writing, absolutely not. Actually, for the book, I did not use it at all. I am using AI for generating dummy images in some demo projects. That's it. I'm not using it for writing or anything like that. The book is 100% written by me, guaranteed. By the way, in case you're wondering, it's this book, React Key Concepts. The second edition has been released a few weeks ago. It's fully updated for React 19, latest version of React Router. If you want to learn all about React, and like me, you occasionally like doing that with a book instead of online resources, this book is for you. And it's not written by AI, it's written by me. Keyboard should persist tabs might be the problem, maybe. I'm going crazy. Possible that this is the problem. Not you going crazy, but keyboard should persist. I'd love to see you streaming a sort of live coding session with those who are brave enough. Yeah, live coding, definitely. I have done live coding sessions in the past. I will definitely do more in the future. I have not tried Claude Code yet. I just got access this morning. I'll maybe give it a try tomorrow if I find time for it. We'll see. Okay, so this is done. Actually, okay. I feared that this might not work. I got this stack here. If I click on it, something happens, but not really what I want it to happen. So I'll open a new chat because it looks like this one was already broken. Unfortunately, the stack on the starting page does not expand when I click tap on it. It should do so to allow me to mark individual items as highlights. Let's try it again. It's the last try. I gotta go in a couple of minutes. I really hoped that we would get more done, to be very honest. I have not tried this app before with Cursor and Claude. I have used both today, over the last days. Cursor I used a lot over the last months. Okay, now we have a connection problem as it seems. So maybe it's also like a problem that the Cursor API is on its limits here, or the Claude API. I really hope we would have get more done. I had better results, to be very honest, in the past, but I also haven't used it the way I use it today. I only used it as an assistant to get to have it help me with individual building blocks. So that still seems to be the better approach, which of course is only something you can do if you know how to write code. When this kind of loop happens on agentic mode, I usually solve switching model to O3 Mini. Interesting. Yeah, different model is also something I could try. But I'm running out of time. I'll see if Claude can fix it here. But true, different model would have been a good idea too. The state of React Native is ready. Like, do you know what the current, you mean what the current state of React Native is, in my opinion, or what? Windsurf is pretty good. Yeah, I heard so. I have not tried it yet. It's also on my to-do list, maybe also for tomorrow. I typically try to use Friday for like the fun stuff, the experimenting stuff, but currently I got a lot of things to do, so I'm not sure if I'll get to it. Happy to hear, Kat, too, that you got away from pirating. Because, to be very honest, Udemy courses are not expensive. Creating them is a lot of work. Pirating is not cool. So I'm happy that you now got... I'm happy to hear it was helpful. And I'm happy to hear you now got some courses legally, as I understand it. That's the better approach. Because really, like, paying for work is a good thing. I love that book. Amazing to hear. Thank you so much, Francis. And I think Lucas also, awesome book. Thank you so much, both of you. I had a lot of fun writing the book, React Key Concepts. So happy to hear you're liking it. Okay, so back. Okay, good news, good news. I'm running out of time, but this is now working. To be very honest, this stack here looks horrible, not the way I want it to look. I want to have like overlapping items, which are really like that you can see all the items. Like, you know what I mean. I did not want that, but I can expand and collapse it. It's weird, but it generally works. Okay. Let me reload. I just want to see. Okay, no, the items here are still there. So it generally works, and I think that's a good thing, that this is working. A lot of things about this app are broken, like the inputs here. I would have to dive into the code myself to debug that. I can't edit the items here. I haven't asked it to add this yet. I asked it initially, but I have not asked it to add it now. So there are many things that are not working the way it should. The UI is also still could be better. But something works, and I think what's also important to note is like the main functionality, adding items, having that list here, highlighting them, marking them as completed, that worked pretty early on. The editing part was missing and some other things were missing too, but the main features worked pretty early on. The UI was horrible, and you could see over the last hour that like working with AI only can be really inefficient if you use it like this, because you keep on asking and you try to explain what's wrong, you give it images, it doesn't fix it. Instead, it introduces new problems, like on this page here, where I was able to enter something initially and now it's not working anymore. So it can really be draining and annoying. It can be a helpful tool though, but probably not the way I'm using it like this, when I'm using it like this. But that is what I've always been saying in all these videos. It's a great assistant. Use it as an assistant. Don't rely on it. Use it as an assistant. In the driver's seat, I'm not sure. You can probably get better results. I'm sure other people like one-shot apps like this. I was not that lucky today, and luck is not something I want to rely on as a developer, to be honest. But yeah, it is what it is. Hopefully it was interesting for you. Hopefully you liked it. I had a lot of fun here, even though we don't have a working app now. It's YouTube, dude. It is. Thank you so much for joining. Are there any plans for updates on the React Native Expo course? Yes, there are. Got no concrete date yet, probably after the next big React Native update. I can't promise it though. Got so many things going on, but definitely something I'd like to do. I think this proves that even when AI is getting so much better, you still need to learn how to code. You definitely do. Learning to code, still a good idea, in my opinion. Still a good idea, not just because I sell courses. I know it seems obvious, but really, despite that, still a good idea. What book would you recommend for Angular? I haven't read one, Francis, unfortunately, so I can't recommend one. Sorry. And yeah, I'm also the Udemy dude, ironclad. I have just subscribed to your channel. Thank you so much. There will be more live streams and all regular videos. I hope you like them. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We got such a big crowd here. Awesome. Even though we only built a broken app, but hey, I hope it was fun. Can I have your opinion about freelance developer, which I am now taking over as a full-time developer that programs in a way 20 years in the past, so he believes nobody could understand it. I'm not sure if I get this. So you're taking over the job of as a full-time developer in a job where you have to like program like we did 20 years in the past. I'm not sure if I get this. More next and view content, please. I would love to. It's just like so many topics, so little time. So yeah, but more view content. I agree. I would love to. It's also on my list, but there's so much on that list. But hopefully, yeah. I mean, we've got Vapor mode coming out soon, so I'll try to get back into view for that. Glad to see you live, Max. Took many of your courses on Udemy, Eric. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm alive. I'm very much alive. I'm alive here on YouTube, also Udemy. So yeah, thank you so much for being part of all these courses. React Native course updates are planned, as I said. Amazing stream. Look forward to the next one. Yeah, Lucas, thank you so much. I'm also looking forward to the next one. Typically, I'll stream on Thursdays. Thursday, the same time as today. And I'll post on X and so on, but yeah. What did I miss? I just came. Unfortunately, I'm about to wrap up. I tried building a app that allows me to manage daily missions with just Cursor and Claude Sonnet 3.7. And while some things work, many things don't. So unfortunately, I kind of failed here, or Claude failed. But yeah, was interesting to see how AI behaves, I guess. Yeah, I've also been using Claude 3.7 more successfully than here in other projects, but that was when I used it as an assistant, essentially. Oh, he programmed away as a freelance developer, so he had job security. Nobody else could understand his code. Yeah, that's a great moat, I guess. If you have a job where no one else understands your code, that is a pretty good way of protecting your job. If you're taking over that job, well, I guess there are just two options. Either there is a way of understanding that code and you need to spend the time to do so, and you need to convince people that it takes you some time to do so, or the stuff needs to be rewritten if it's really impossible to understand, which I guess everything's possible to understand, but if it's too complex, maybe rewriting it is the better solution then. So thank you so much for being a fan, TKVSR. And Next.js Advanced course with TypeScript not planned right now, to be honest. Got too many other things, too many other ideas. I would love to create courses on all these things and in general videos, but got too many things. Yeah, he programmed it bad so he could prolong his stay. As I said, great way of protecting your job. Not really, of course, a way you should use, but yeah, good for him, I guess. Bad for you or whoever would be taking over this job. Okay, so yeah, $20 wasted, probably. I need to wrap up, people. I need to go. Thank you all so much for joining. Hopefully, I see you again next week, same time, 11 Eastern time. And in general, on YouTube, Udemy, wherever. Hope you had fun. I had fun. And yeah, see you in future streams. Bye, everyone. Have a good day, night, evening, whatever. Bye.